We are less than a week from the NFL draft, and the Philadelphia Eagles seem to have no lack of major moves up their sleeves. First, I want to talk about how Howie Roseman may be playing poker with the rest of the NFL as far as who he likes. And also, I want to talk about the possibility of King Henry becoming a Philadelphia Eagle. So let's talk about it. What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and it is Philly the podcast. So today I want to talk about Derrick Henry possibly coming on over to Philly, and I also want to talk about Howie Roseman and how he may have a poker face on with some of the news we've been having come out lately. But before we get into that, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, join the family. We are on the road to 10K. We would love for you guys to join that ride. Also, I will be out at the NFL draft covering the NFL draft. This is my first time being credentialed media for the draft, so if you guys would like to help in any way, I will leave a link down below if you want to donate and help me with my trip. But let's get into this news. I want to start with Howie Roseman. Now, a lot of news has been coming out about players that they like, about guys that have impressed them in their meetings and everything, you know, Bijan being one of the latest, but there's been a lot of guys that have come into this building, and media is saying that the Eagles really do like them, right? So look, if you go by what the media is saying, it sounds like we're going to go 10 Bijan and 30 we're going to go with Adebawore. So, I mean, if you really look at that, then you're sitting there like, all right, well, we already know what our players are. But if you know Howie, if you know this Philadelphia Eagles team, you know that's probably the furthest from the truth. So there was a report that came out that the Eagles are interested in a lot of different players, but that they may be upping the hype on certain guys like Bijan just to kind of make that trade market a little bit thicker. I mean, I've said this before, with the Eagles sitting at 10, you would hope that a quarterback falls to 10 and that you would hope that a quarterback needy team would jump up. But if you can increase the value of a guy like Bijan, if you can increase the value of one of these wide receivers, one of these tight ends, realistically make other teams think, hey, the Eagles might take my guy at 10. Let me move on up to either 9 or move on up to 10 with the Eagles and try and get that guy that I want. So I do believe that Howie Roseman does like some of these prospects, don't get me wrong, but I do think that it is being a little bit overblown. I think that they're inflating it a little bit, just like I said, to get that value up a little bit. Now, this is nothing new to Eagles fans, right? We're used to Howie Roseman saying one thing, doing the other, but I think that this is smart, especially in this draft, especially when you don't have, realistically, you don't have 10 to 15 guys that you say are first round, you know, can't miss type prospects. I've said this before. I think there's like 6 to 8 maybe, you know what I'm saying, depending on who you would categorize as can't miss. So it makes sense to try and inflate the price of your pick. And not only that, it makes sense to try and make the people in the top 10 a little bit worried that, hey, maybe they go after Bijan, maybe they go after one of the all-O linemen we want, and, you know, it drops one of these defensive linemen down to us, or vice versa. Who knows what the end goal is for the Eagles, but I like that they're not just putting everything out on the table as usual, per usual. This is nothing new to Eagles fans. Now, what may be new to Eagles fans, shout out to, let me make sure I say his name right. Akbar, he is the host of Ninja Warrior. He also has the same agent as King Henry. He used to be a reporter. He works for CBS. So he has some background in the NFL. He has connections. And he said late last night at like 3 o'clock in the morning, that breaking news, the Eagles are trading for Derrick Henry. He went on to double down, because I read through the comments and he did reply to some of the comments, and people were saying that it was fake, and he was like, listen, just remember I'm the first one that told you. Is this true? I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to talk this out, because to me, it's like, it's so random. Why is the host of Ninja Warrior, who barely ever talks about football, like, you look through his Twitter, excuse me, he's talked about the Eagles before in games. He's talked about fantasy football with King Henry. He's talked about football, but he hasn't necessarily been a guy that, you know, drops news, obviously. And it's so random that it could be true. Obviously, like I said, they have that connection that they do work for the same agency, or they work under the same agency, I should say. So there is a real possibility that he got that information and wanted to put it out there. I know this might not mean anything to anybody, but I know that he was talking about having King Henry on his fantasy football team. So it could be something that he's just tracking because he wanted to see where his guy was going. And now he saw that he was going to the Eagles and felt like he should just go ahead and put it out. I don't know if it's true. I'm like 50-50. I don't even know. I'm like 40-60. 40% of me really believes that it might be true, and then 60% of me is like, he's probably just trolling. But it's just so weird. It's just so random that it could be true. And like I said, with all the connections, there's possibility that he got that information, and we'll see what happens. We will definitely see what happens. This would most likely mean no Bijan, right? This would most likely mean no Bijan Robinson, and some people would get upset for that. I asked on Twitter, and I'll ask you guys as well, kind of leave this in the comments. What would you give up for a Derrick Henry? And are you even interested in a Derrick Henry? Would you rather get a Bijan? I think that this is a short-term situation. If you realistically don't feel like, hey, I'm not gonna re-sign Bijan in 5 years anyways, I just want a guy that can get me these next 2-3 years with Jalen Hurts on a cheap contract. I don't care how much I'm paying. I want a top guy. Then Derrick Henry's probably that guy. Derrick Henry's probably that guy. You get Derrick Henry, and Super Bowl is the goal again. I think right now, even just as we stand, obviously the Eagles want to get back to that promised land. But you add a Derrick Henry, and it's kind of hard to not think this team will be in the Super Bowl again. And realistically, it's kind of hard not to think that this team would average over 30 yards. Derrick Henry is a guy that if Jalen Hurts is having a bad game, he can just take over. He can absolutely take over this team. So I'm interested to see what happens. Like I said, I'm kind of like 40-60 right now as far as me believing it. I would love it. Let me know what you guys would think. Do you want him? Do you want Bijan? What would you give up for Derrick Henry? Let me know in the comments. But other than that, y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly. And we are out here. And I'm about to sneeze. Psych. Peace.
Eagles fans everywhere. This is for you.
Fly Eagles flying on the team. Touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a Bird Gang Nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man saw Jackson like Deshaun, hunting like Randall. Season hit, early time to do him in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning in.